Basketball season is close, just under a couple months away. Upcoming freshman Kaleb Glenn has really been showing out in the offseason. Who better to talk about Glenn's development than his former high school basketball coach, Tim Haworth? We'll talk to him on today's episode of the show. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On the Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Joined today by a special guest, Louisville Male High School head basketball coach, Tim Haworth. Tim, long time no talk, man. How have you been?
Man, been great. How about you?
Oh, we're hanging in there. Battling through some sinus stuff, but it is what it is. Coach, wanted to bring you on today to talk a little bit about a couple of your former players. For those who don't know, he coached upcoming freshman Kaleb Glenn, who is a part of the Louisville men's basketball team. He also coached Selah Brown, who is a member of the football team. So we'll start with Kaleb, Coach. It seems like every time I talk about Kaleb, I have to let people know that I announced for male. I announced for Kaleb. Might just be a selfless plug on my end. Might just be trying to tell people that, like, hey, I've seen the development up front, but you've seen it in a little bit of a different situation, having been, right there. Freshman year goes from being sort of a guy that plays mainly around the rim to doing a little bit of everything. Where he's at now in his game, is this where you envisioned him to be when he stepped foot in your program as a freshman?
Yeah, I knew Kaleb was special, right from the get-go. The thing about Kaleb is he has a professional mindset every day. Even as a freshman, he's going to take care of his body. He's going to get in the gym early. He's going to do whatever it takes to be the best player on the floor. That's what was special about Kaleb from day one.
Now, obviously, spent senior year at La Lumiere, but even then, a lot of that development came freshman to junior season. He actually led the state field goal percentage as a freshman. In terms of what you kind of pinpointed for him to develop, was it more so each offseason just trying to add a new facet to the game or to his game respectively? How did that development plan kind of come about, and what was your main focus for him going into, sophomore and junior seasons?
Well, I think the two things in basketball, you got to, one, be able to handle the ball, and two, you got to be able to shoot it. And so those were the focal points. We know he's 6'7", 220, great athlete, smart, great physical body, but he had to improve his ball handling and shooting. And, I think he was able to do that the 3 years that he was here. I think he shot over 100 threes, his junior year. And so he just kept adding facets to his game where he wasn't just an inside player. Freshman year, he's more of an inside player. Sophomore year, we only played like 7 games, so he didn't really have a sophomore season. And then junior season, he really stepped out on the perimeter, handled the ball, and shot it really well.
Moving forward for him, obviously being 6'6", 6'7" for him, you mentioned being able to handle the ball, being able to shoot the ball, definitely has continued to grow. But a lot of Louisville fans that I've talked to have asked, how do you see Kaleb fitting into the modern era of college basketball and where he fits skill set wise? And I said, you know what? He's physically ready. I mean, he's had the college ready body since probably 2020, but being able to add that shooting really gives him a lot of versatility. How would you see his game as it relates to what type of role he could play at the next level as it relates to his skill set?
Well, I think he could be a 3, a 2 or 3, and even a stretch 4. I think you can, when you got a guy like Kaleb, I think you can go smaller, and I think he can guard a 4 or 5 because of his physicality. We played Dorman High School out of South Carolina. They had a guy, Clowney, that went, I think, 24th in the NBA draft. Well, he had 32 points and 20 rebounds on him. And so, if you looked at him, you'd be like he was undersized. He just took it to him the whole night. And so his skill set's good enough for him to make an immediate impact his first year at Louisville. I think sometimes we just get caught up in like what looks good and this and that. Give me a guy that's a winner. Give me a guy with a great attitude that refuses to lose, that does whatever it takes to win. That's Kaleb Glenn.
You mentioned that. I specifically remember him that game. Also had a very good game against Xavier Booker, very highly rated guy out of Cathedral, and some other players, not only national guys, but players around the state for Ballard with Maker Bar and a handful of other guys. It seemed like Coach Kaleb Glenn really relished that spotlight, really took it to other players when the lights were the brightest. And unfortunately, that can't be said for a lot of star players.
Right. And you find out, you can be you want to have a great practice player with a great work ethic. Mm-hmm. Find out who's really cut out for the, for the show when the lights come on. And, he just relished that every time he takes the court. He's going to step it up. He's going to, even if he has a bad game, it ain't going to be because he's scared. It's not going to be because of lack of effort. You're just going to have bad games every once in a while. He's not going to have too many. He prepares himself off the court, on the court, and then his results speaks for itself.
What a lot of people don't know, especially if you're not very informed on the high school basketball landscape in the state, is when he was a freshman. I mean, you all had, in my opinion, and your opinion as well, the best team in the state, featuring multiple Division I guys: Howard Fleming, Tyron Moore, Jake Evans, so on and so forth. How critical was having those guys to sort of help mentor him and also have to go up every day and practice to be able to help sort of set the foundation for what was to come?
Yeah, it was great, and those guys really led really well. And the thing about Kaleb is, Howard was hurt for like 17 games out of that year. And so was Elijah Priest, who was a starter. And then, like Des Lindsey, he's getting offers from Oregon, Missouri. He was our sixth man, and he's going to be a high Division I player. And so, for Kaleb to be able to go against those guys every day in practice, and then to be able to have his own, I always say that you want to have your individuality within for him to be able to do that was special.
Mm-hmm. Last question for this segment, Coach. Obviously leaves before his senior season. It was nice to see him around the team when you all ended up winning that regional tournament back in March or so. But it seemed like the three-point shooting continued to get better and better. It looked like he handled the ball a little bit more. Every time I've watched Kaleb play, and as I've watched him get better and better down the line, I feel like people just try to sort of micro analyze the lack of size and try to make it into a limitation. And we've seen, obviously it's not conventional, but we've seen players be able to really sort of play out of their size, especially for a guy that's extremely athletic as he is, and has almost pretty much a physical college-ready frame day one.
Yeah, that's the society we live in now. Where everybody's analyzing stuff, and the one thing that you have to be, whether you're a coach at the high school level, college level, NBA, a player, any position where you're in leadership, you got to be able to take criticism and know that it just comes with it. And so they can criticize Kaleb all day long and say he's not this, he's not that. Mark my word, the kid will be a phenomenal basketball player at Louisville. He'll have a chance to go play in the NBA someday. He's got a relentless work ethic. And I'm telling you, like, when you've got that and you've got the skill set and you've got the athleticism, you have a chance to go as far as you want to. And so they can say whatever they want to. I don't care. Give me Kaleb Glenn. I'll win a lot of games with him as a coach.
Well, you definitely did in his time at Male. I want to talk about, before we take a little bit of a break, I do want to talk about Kaleb as filling this sort of hometown hero mold, going from a local high school to committing to Louisville. We'll talk about that here momentarily after we talk about our friends and the title sponsor of the show, LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. It helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Create your job post on LinkedIn, add the purple hashtag hiring frame, and watch the numbers work for themselves. You get simple tools like screening questions that allow you to limit the candidates with the right skill sets. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. Just post your job at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Heading on into the second segment of this special episode with Louisville Male head basketball coach Tim Haworth. Tim coached Kaleb for 3 years, showed signs of promise at Ballard as an 8th grader, ends up coming to Male, and immediately starts to make a name for himself in the Kentucky landscape. And then it just seemingly snowballed from there into him being a top 70 recruit or so. But it seemed like we talked about it just a little while ago, but the spotlight never really affected him. Even when his name held more weight, it seemed like he got better and better to the point where he almost continued to live up to the expectation as they grew.
Yeah, and I think Michael Jordan said this. He said his work ethic gave him confidence in games, and I think that's the same way with Kaleb. The more work you put in and you see the results, the more confidence you have when you go out there and take the floor. It's like me as a coach. Obviously, you got to have really good players, but if I'm able, I want to be the hardest working coach in the state. Like, I don't want any I not dotted or any T not crossed. I want to make sure that all of our details, when we go into battle, that we've got everything covered. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to win the game, you're going to play well, but it gives you a sense of confidence where you're like, okay, let's throw it up. Let's see what happens. Our players are ready. Our coaches are ready. It's the same thing with Kaleb. Kaleb was able, block out all the stuff on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and all these social media sites, come into work every day, do what you do. Know that you're going to have ups and downs. And on the days that are down, get yourself up and get ready to go and find something that God has given you an enjoyment in life. And if you can do that, you'll be successful.
Obviously, it helps for a guy who has family that's played for Louisville, and being able to direct guidance and things of that nature. But for a player in the city, obviously basketball is huge in the state. I don't have to tell you that. I don't really have to tell anybody that's listening that because they know. But for a player to go from being raised in Louisville to committing to Louisville, is there a conversation that was had there, after he commits to Louisville, like, hey, look, there's going to be some added pressure, just make sure you keep your head down and work. There's going to be more criticism, especially from people across the state. You just have to do what you do and handle business like usual.
Yeah, absolutely. We always talk, with Coach Kelsey and, our guys, we always talk about the circle. So everybody outside the circle can have an opinion on whether you're a great coach, not a great coach, whether you're a great player, not a great player. What you have to focus in on is the people that's always going to be in your corner, win or lose, whether you're up, down, they're always going to be there for you. It may not be many of them, but it's going to be some. And then what you have to do is you have to, like you said, you have to put your head down and you have to just know that you're going to have struggles. You're going to have some days where you struggle. You're going to have some games where you don't play well. And then you just have to tell yourself, how do I get better? How do I improve from this performance? And it's my work ethic. And I hate to say, but just keep everything simple. Keep it simple and just work.
It's a great opportunity and obviously pretty significant to be able to not only play at home, but play at home for a program that many revere, like myself, to be a blue blood level program. How big is it for you to have been able to coach a player? You've coached a handful of really successful players that have gone on to do great things, play professionally. Just how nice is it to see a player that you coached be able to now go play for his hometown school?
Oh, it makes me I can't even tell you the feeling that I have. And just being able to go to Louisville games this year and watch him play is going to be phenomenal for me as a coach. And to know that I had a small part of that, you know what I mean? And so just picking him up of a morning, I picked Kaleb up. I think I got to his house around 4:45 every day in the morning, and he shot jumper after jumper after jumper. But, the thing I value a lot is the car ride to the gym. We was able to just me and him just talk about things. And, I value those friendships, those relationships where now I can be more of his, encourage him. I don't have to be his coach. I don't have to be getting on him, as much. I can encourage him. And so those relationships is what matters to me in coaching, and to be able to see Kaleb's success, it's pretty awesome.
Last question I have about Kaleb, Coach. Obviously, we as spectators see the type of player Kaleb is on the court. How do you think that his personality off the court sort of is going to also help him, reach that level of success that you believe he's going to at Louisville, that people obviously can't see unless you know him personally?
Well, he doesn't get too high or low. And that's the thing about Kaleb. And so it actually, I'm way more emotional than he is, you know what I'm saying? But, over my career, sorry about that.
You're good.
Over my time that I've had, in playing basketball and in coaching, I don't try to get too high or too low, and so I think his personality kind of makes it to where he's able to just kind of just take it all. He scores 38 points in the Region 7 final game. He just takes it in stride. He don't get too far ahead of himself.
I definitely think that he's going to have a special career at Louisville that rivals that of guys like Dwayne Sutton, Quentin Snyder, that all were pretty solid for the Cardinals. But that's not the only current Cardinal that you've coached. You also coached Selah Brown in his time as a basketball player for Male. Before we talk about him, I do want to thank everyone for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder that the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Coach, a lot of people don't know that Selah Brown was a basketball player. Pretty good one as well. He was a key part of your rotation when he was available. Obviously, started the seasons out a little bit later with how far Mel went in the football playoffs. How big of a challenge was that to sort of get him acclimated into the rotation? I mean, you had a couple football players, Max Gainey as well, who Louisville fans need to focus on in terms of future football recruiting. I know they're in shape, but how difficult is it to kind of incorporate them into that rotation when that time comes?
Well, it's real difficult. Last year we started off 3-7, and so the December, it's like even this year, 8 of my top 16 players on varsity play football. I love it. Coach Wolf's one of my best friends. Love football players. They bring a sense of toughness. Now, if you're expecting us to be good in December, it ain't happening. So you have to understand as a coach, what the bigger goal is. And so our goal is to win the district, win the region, win the state. And so we feel like we have an opportunity with our football players. Guys like Selah, he was just tremendous. He gave us leadership. He gave us scoring inside, rebounding, and a sense of toughness. He's just a flat-out winner, and you can't teach that on a basketball team. And so when they're used to winning on the football field, and then they come over to basketball, it makes it a lot easier to coach guys that are expecting to win.
Right. You mentioned that toughness, and this isn't indicating that I think that your teams aren't tough or in general, but you could tell that when Selah was on the court that, he was never one to talk a ton unless someone started it, and then there was no backing down. I remember a couple technical fouls due to just, complete passion for the game, but it seemed like that resonated with the rest of the team to where they bought into it. I think that is one of the staples of your program, is just bringing that toughness on both ends of the court. And it seemed like he embodied that all the time.
Absolutely. If I could pick a player that embodies what I want to be as a basketball player, as a coach, as a teacher, is I want toughness. I want mental and physical toughness, and Selah brings that. And he has zero back down. quick story, we were in New Orleans, and this was in 2020. We were loaded. We had Howard out, Elijah out, Cam Pope, who was Division I. We had all three of those guys out. We play a top 25 team in the nation, and I knew we could win a state championship after this game. But Selah comes in, we're tied, and he gets the ball. I said, swing it. He doesn't swing it. He takes 2 dribbles to the middle. He gets over his right shoulder and puts the 6'11" kid that went to Minnesota. He put him in the basket, scored the 2 points. It's Selah. It was the biggest 2 points of the game. We went on to win the game. And so, it's plays like that. Regional finals. He's shooting like 42% from the free throw line. He gets fouled. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if he can just hit one. He shoots the first one, he makes it. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Like, now we're only down 1. Like,
right.
Everything. Well, he makes the second one. Now we're tied. You know what I mean? And then we end up winning the game on Caleb's buzzer beater. And so, but it's Selah. He's just going to find a way. He shoot 42%. He's going to make the 2 big ones. And so he was such a pleasure to coach. Love him. Everything about Selah.
And when you talk to Coach Wolf, I mean, hearing interviews from him back when Selah was in high school, he essentially has said the same thing, is that the perseverance, playing his best when the lights shine the brightest. Didn't get a ton of time last year, played behind some big-time guys on that Louisville defensive line, looking to create his legacy now for the Cardinals. What have you seen from Selah as a basketball player, sort of intangible-wise, that leads you to believe that, hey, look, this guy is really going to succeed at the football level? Obviously, it's a totally different sport, and you can only go so far in terms of, expertise. But, what is it, Selah's work ethic, leadership, personality, that leads you to believe, yeah, he's going to succeed regardless?
His 2 toughest attributes, toughness and leadership. Those are his 2 biggest strengths. Like, he's going to find a way on that field. Like, he's going to find a way. And he gets an opportunity, he's going to make the most of it. Like, he's a competitor. Like, he has 0 back down. He's never scared. Like, he thinks he's the best basketball player on the floor. He thinks he's the best basketball or football player. That's his mindset. And those are the 2 biggest attributes that I think he has that separates him from most normal players.
I definitely would agree there. Last question I have. It was always fun to watch Selah play, only being 6'2" or so, but having that huge frame to go along with it that absolutely, bulldozes guys in the paint. Was there ever a time to where you had to be like, hey, look, tone down the physicality inside? You can't draw too many offensive fouls. It seemed like I don't necessarily know that there was ever a time to where in games it seemed like he was out of control with his size. But in practice, was there ever a time where you kind of had to say, hey, look, tone it down a little bit?
No, I never did. I want each player to be their own individual player. If you're emotional, bring the emotions. If you're quiet, that's cool. If you're, unless we're on defense and you're talking defense, but I'm talking about be your own individual person. If you're the rah-rah guy, be the rah-rah guy. If you're a physical dude, be a physical dude. If you're a shooter, be a shooter. So I just encourage those guys to be their own individual self within the team concept.
Right. Coach, that's all I got. Coach Tim Haworth, head coach of Louisville Male High School, head basketball coach. Coach Kaleb Glenn for 3 years. Coach Selah Brown as well in high school. Coach, I appreciate your time. Hope to look forward to hearing you talk about some more future Cardinals when that time comes.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dalton.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Tim. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back.